Sarah had worked a double shift at the hospital, and by the time she glanced at her watch, her heart sank. It was already 7:43 p.m., and she was supposed to meet Daniel at the small Italian restaurant downtown at 7:00. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the power of small moments to change lives, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to Kindness True Stories. Also, tell us in the comments, where in the world are you watching from? She had matched with him on a dating app 2 weeks ago, and after several long conversations that stretched past midnight, she had finally agreed to meet him in person. Daniel seemed different from other men she had talked to, patient, genuine and warm in a way that felt rare. But now, standing in the hospital corridor, still wearing her blue scrubs with a dark stain of blood near her left sleeve from an emergency procedure she had assisted in just an hour ago, she had no time to go home and change. She thought about cancelling, but something in her chest told her to just go, to at least explain in person, to not leave him waiting without a word. She grabbed her bag, whispered an apology to nobody in particular, and rushed out into the cold evening air. The restaurant was small and warmly lit, with soft music drifting from somewhere inside. She pushed open the door and immediately felt every eye in the room glance her way. A tired woman in wrinkled scrubs, no makeup, hair pulled back in a messy bun, with what was clearly dried blood on her sleeve. She wanted to disappear. Then she saw him. Daniel was sitting at a corner table with 2 glasses of water and a small bunch of wildflowers placed neatly beside the bread basket. He was not dressed in anything expensive, a simple button-up shirt, slightly creased, the kind a man irons himself without much practice. He looked up, and the moment their eyes met, something in Sarah braced for the worst, a look of disappointment, awkwardness, or the polite but unmistakable expression of a man who had already decided this was a mistake. Instead, Daniel stood up, not with irritation or forced courtesy, but with something that looked almost like relief. "You came," he said simply, and the warmth in his voice made her throat tighten. "I'm so sorry," Sarah began, her words tumbling out quickly. "There was an emergency at the hospital. A child came in and things got complicated, and I didn't have time to go home, and I know I look terrible, and you've been waiting for almost an hour, and I completely understand if you want to." Daniel gently raised one hand. "Hey," he said, "sit down, please." She sat, still tense, her hands wrapped around each other on the table. He looked at the stain on her sleeve for just a moment, then looked back at her face with an expression she had not expected, respect. "Is the child okay?" he asked. And just like that, Sarah felt something inside her loosen. She told him about the little girl who had come in with a severe allergic reaction, how the team had worked quickly, how the child had stabilized, and how her mother had cried in the corridor, with such raw gratitude that it made the exhaustion almost bearable. Daniel listened without checking his phone once. He told her that he understood long hours and emergency calls better than most people. 2 years ago, his wife had passed away after a sudden illness, leaving him alone with their 4-year-old son, Marcus. He had been working 2 jobs ever since, days at a grocery warehouse and evenings doing delivery orders, just to keep their small apartment and make sure Marcus had what he needed. Life had not been kind, but Marcus had his mother's smile, and that made it worth every tired morning. Sarah looked at this man, this quiet, steady man who had brought wildflowers to a first date and asked about a stranger's child before anything else. And she felt something shift inside her. They talked through dinner, then through dessert, then through 2 cups of coffee until the restaurant was nearly empty and the staff were gently stacking chairs nearby. When they finally stepped outside into the cold night air, Daniel walked her to her car. Before she opened the door, she turned to him. "I showed up late in stained scrubs, completely exhausted," she said, "and you made me feel like I was exactly where I was supposed to be." He smiled, that quiet, warm smile that she was already beginning to recognize. "You spent your day saving a little girl's life," he said. "The least I could do was save you a seat." 3 months later, Sarah was standing in that same hospital corridor when she got a call from Daniel. Marcus had been brought in by ambulance. He had fallen from a tree in the park and fractured his arm. She was already running toward the emergency wing before she even hung up. She was there when Daniel arrived, pale-faced and trembling, and she took his hand and told him that Marcus was going to be okay, that the doctors were with him, that she was not going anywhere. And in that bright, humming hospital hallway, surrounded by the noise and urgency of 100 other lives, Daniel looked at her with eyes full of something that needed no words at all. Love does not always arrive dressed perfectly and on time. Sometimes it shows up exhausted in blood-stained scrubs, 43 minutes late, and it is still the most beautiful thing you have ever seen. If this story touched your heart, please like, share and subscribe to Kindness True Stories, because every act of kindness deserves to be told.